You read that it fell. Ignore my glitter packaging. I come packing, crafting.
Hello, and thank you so much for joining me here on SewStitchHex. I'm Macadamia, and today I'm going to be doing a review of Volume 2 of A Sign of Affection. So, I know I mentioned in the first video how I was very excited to have a book where just talking isn't the only form of communication, and they also communicate so well. So it's really, really good. I will say I totally didn't point out any of the like subtleties. That's a word I don't know how to say. But they bring it up here at the back. They have like a ton of translation notes. They did it in book 1. They do it in book 2. I assume they do it in the other ones. But like the details of like the author's notes are intense in this one. Like I know you're always expecting to have like a tiny little panel here or there, a little story, anecdotal idea, whatever. But this one, they get real. And I've really been enjoying suu Morishita. I've been reading a lot of their stuff lately, especially because you know how Amazon is. It recommends everything, and I'm like, well, I'm going to find all of those now. Well, one cute little translation note I just want to point out before I get into the full review, before I forget, is there's this cute little line where he's telling her, like, they're walking, and he puts her on the pedestrian side, so not the street side of the sidewalk, and he's telling her, don't get swept off your feet. And they made sure that we pointed it out that it's like a homophone of a phrase, because the verb he uses in Japanese would be hikareru, and just like instead of just saying, you know, like, don't get hit by a car or, you know, watch out, he's saying in English translated, so it makes more sense, he's saying don't get swept off your feet. So it sounds like when she hears it, because of the way that word is typically used, like, don't go falling in love with me, don't get swept off your feet. And that's just a really cute detail. There's a bunch of those, and they're really cute, and I like seeing them point out what the verb was in Japanese, just because that's really cute. So I really like that. Like, that's an extra personal touch from the author, and I love that. But, okay, to summarize, like, the actual story, if you saw the first one, basically it's just girl interested in guy. He's kind of like I think the word I'm looking for is polyglot. He really, really likes languages, likes to learn languages. Apparently his dream is that he wants to open a school and just tell stories and teach kids or whatever. And that's pretty cool. I like that. He likes to travel and go all over. And in here, he knows currently Japanese, German, some English, some Chinese, some Spanish, and a couple other little languages, and now he's learning sign language. And the friends bring up a similar idea that I was a little concerned about, but didn't even mention, because it was like, that's such a back of the stove, I forget it was even there. But of course, if you forget it's there, that becomes fire hazard. Well, she is teaching him sign language. He likes languages. Both his friend and her friend, who are interested in each other, and they all go on a double date. They are discussing, like, do you like her because you like her? Or do you like her because she's teaching you a new language? Or is she like your pet? Because they think he's treating her special, almost like she is a pet or someone he's just intrigued by. But they want him to remember, like, she's a person with feelings. Like, you can't just, you know, use her. And everyone's interested in her. But he, coming off of the last episode, volume, starts getting really invested in their relationship, I guess. Like, you see that they're really cute. And even the friends start to comment on how when he calls her name, even though she can't hear him, he's using a softer, like a sweeter tone to speak to her than he does with everyone else. And it makes her think, because she can't hear, she's like, does he really sound so different when he speaks to me? What does he sound like at all? And there's a really vulnerable moment where he invites her to his house, and we find out he's 22, she's like 19 or whatever. And we find out that she only really talks with her family to practice making the sounds, but she's not very comfortable talking because it's not something she can never hear. And I know there's this big thing about how someone who's never had the ability to hear, the way they sound is very, very different because they don't have a way of changing to sound normal, quote unquote, sound the way we do, that change the pitch and everything. I don't know how to describe, but it was, I heard a lot about that with a bunch of the children from this special needs school. People, a lot of kids who go there are either deaf or blind or have other, like, things they need help with. And it's just for them. So I learned a lot about that when I heard about that. And hearing her talk about how she just kind of sits into a mirror and mouths words and practices trying to do, and her family will help her, like, to get certain sounds. She just makes sounds. Just practicing making the sounds, practicing trying to make words with those sounds. And I thought that was really cool. And she ends up laughing out loud, making sound for him. And he was like, I thought you sounded so cute, so sweet. And it was just like, oh. And it's just, they're, even without being like, yeah, he is touchy with her. And he's very respectful of everyone else's space. And he did ask her, and she said, like, that's fine with you. She's way head over heels. Because in here, he'll pat her on the head or sneak up behind her, which she's deaf, so that's really fucking rude. Which also, they do something in here that I never thought about. Because, you know, when someone is hard of hearing, they'll just cut their hearing aid off and be like, they're like, I'm not listening to you. And to cut it off, like, how rude. I never thought about someone who's, like, completely deaf and they just go off sign language or reading your lips, and they'll cover her face to have a conversation so she can't hear. And I was just sitting there like, that's so rude. But then I thought, like, so if you're completely deaf, can you just be like, I'm not listening to you anymore, and just close your eyes, like, I'm done? Like, that's just... That was the idea I had realized, because when they did that, it took me a while. It took me like 2 hours after finishing this volume, which only took me like maybe 20 minutes max. Just because, of course, I'm not reading constantly. I'm doing other things. But it took me like 2 hours to realize, like, that was so rude. Like, now that I think about why they did that, because she didn't really think about that. She was like, I can't see anything. What's going on? And I'm like, no, I would not have been cool. I would have been like, get off of me. What is happening? But also realizing that it's so they can talk around her, partially about her. Not that we know, really, because they didn't tell us. That's just so rude. And that was something they brought up in here. But I really like, even though he will be kind of touchy-feely with her, that there's a different level of intimacy in this, with them being near each other. Like, how cute they are. And this goes right into another full color kind of page. Well, it's not full color. It's, I would love to see it fully colored, but it's, like, obviously hand painted. Or, like, you know, well, of course, all the drawings are going to be hand. But, you know what I mean? Like, it's just that different artistic touch. It's just absolutely glorious. I thought it was beautiful. Again, Mace with the artwork very much reminds me of, like, Bride of the Water God, and how beautiful that is. And I totally need to do a review of that one, because it's so beautiful. The artwork is amazing. But in this volume, it's just more of them getting to know each other, friends being like, what's going on? And then we get to see the girl who came in at the end of the last book. She was just not, it wasn't anything important, so I didn't even mention. But, like, 2 of his friends came in. It was a girl and a guy, and definitely the dude was, like, plastered, like, shit-faced completely. And our main girl was like, is that his girlfriend? And the owner of this cafe that he works at was like, no, don't even bring that up. But she was like, I gotta bring that up, like, naturally. Because it's like, I don't know if he's covering for him. I want to know what he says about it. Like, no. So then she goes and talks to our main dude about it. And the main dude's like, no, we're not. And she's like, okay. But then conveniently, when they're hanging out for the first time, she shows up at his house. And this volume has a lot of time spent with them at the house. Like, it's like a chunk See that massive chunk? It's almost a third. The first third is them going on a double date with the friends to like a Costco to go shopping. And then the middle is just them at his house eating pizza and chit-chatting and whatnot. Whew. And then the last third is just this whole confusion because that girl shows up at his house, right? This is the second time. The first time she showed up, she was like, hey, can I stay the night? And he's like, ugh. Like, why are you here? Like, what the heck? And she's like, blah, 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 blah. Bullshit. It was all bullshit. Let's just be real. Lying through her teeth because she has the hots for him. Couldn't be clearer if she drew it on her face in Sharpie. Like, come on. So, he's like, whatever. Make sure you give me the key back. And she ends up staying... Excuse me. What are you doing? She stays the night. He ditches to go stay at the owner of the cafe. His other friend stays at his house. And then this is conveniently when she decides to turn the key in. And he's like, oh my God, there's a girl leaving his house? Like, what's going on? And it's like, dude, he told you, like, to tell him when you're coming. He already told you to stop loitering around his house, stop crying outside his door. You're going to worry his neighbors. You're going to freak people out. People are going to get the wrong idea about him. And also, you're making him uncomfortable because you're clinging to him and you're, like, all over him and you're not a relationship. And it seems that they haven't been in a relationship. But there is something there, and I don't know if it's just her fascination with him, or if he's let her on before, or if they have had a kind of fling, but it seems like he's not interested in anything. And she just needs to stop. And now she's showing up and very clearly trying to sabotage. She's like, she point blank says, she's like, let me find it. Thanks for letting me stay over the other night. Yeah, like being really obvious. And of course, our main girl is deaf, so she didn't hear. And she's like, wow, no reaction. I know she should have heard me. And she's like, oops. Like, bitch, come the fuck on. You're trying to sabotage his relationships, and you're not even in a relationship with him. This is a little bit odd. And he's like, I didn't let you stay over. You showed up and had no place and, like, made it my problem, frankly. And she's like, do I really have to give the key back? It's like, bitch, I didn't want to give you a key in the first place. Yes, give the key back. And she makes a big scene. She's all blubbery and crying. And it's like, what the heck? Now, our girl does see him get the key back and then just walks into the elevator, you know, goes downstairs. And then he was going to walk her home, but she's like, I'll walk myself home. It's fine. And it's like, so she's got the context clues because our girl ain't dumb. Okay? She's deaf, not dumb. Get it together. She can see what the fuck's going on. And that's what she did. She saw it and she kind of felt really shitty. Frankly, she's like, I don't know how to interpret these emotions. I've never been in a relationship. I've never understood these emotions. And I'm feeling them for the first time. Is this jealousy? Is this confusion? Am I being played? Is this guy fucking with me? What is going on? Goes and she meets up with a friend that went on the double date with her at the beginning of the book because not a lot physically happened. It just took up a long space of time in the book, like physically page-wise. He shows up at her house. The mom lets her in and is like, I'm going to the store. And it's like, thanks, Mom. Feels like everything I've heard about an Asian mom being like, ooh, handsome boy. All right, here you two go together. I'll see you. It's exactly what happened. And he shows up and he's like, I want to talk to you. And he's like, look at him. He looks like such a fine young man. Look at him. Daw. Trying to be all dressed up. And he wanted her to finish her sentence, so they were interrupted in talking because she was drawing the words on his hand instead of speaking because she couldn't look him in the eye because she was super nervous. He was like, the question was, so the question was about, like, because before she had given him permission to, you know, sneak up behind her and just be like, hey, girl. And she was like, it's okay when it's you. And it was like, she said that, and she knew immediately when she said that. It was like clear as day. I'm in deep like with you. And so he's been playing with that a bit. So I was a little nervous, but he seems genuinely either genuinely a playboy that has gotten the wool over my eyes and hers, or a really good guy. He seems so sweet, and his voice changes when he talks to her, and she can't tell, but everyone else notices it. Like, does he like her? Like, what is going on there? Yeah. So when he's like, how far does it go? And she was like, if it's you, everything, it's like everything you have a little bit more leeway with. And it was just like a very intimate moment, a very like sweet moment, and it ends with this absolutely adorbs, and I apologize if you can hear the beast in the background, this adorable little kiss on the hand. And so like it ends absolutely precious. I really love this series so far. Like, the only thing we've been worried about is whether or not he is playing with her feelings or whether he's legit, and both his friends and her friends are a little concerned on that, but they seem to be leaning towards what I was leaning towards, which is that he is legit. Now, if it does come forward that he just has this innate fascination with her because she is unlike someone he's ever met, because she is deaf and she doesn't communicate traditional ways, then it will break her. And I think that's something to remember, because this is her first love. This is her first time experiencing this kind of romantic relationship. So I think if it does turn out that way, he's gonna feel like shit, and in typical like shoujo manga romance style, he will apologize and then they'll make up and get back together. But that's just if that happens. I'm hoping that doesn't happen. I'd like for there to be other plot things. Like right now she's super jelly about that girl, and I know they're going to talk about it more probably in the next book, and it's probably going to come up where that girl confronts him and is like, who are you? Like, what makes you think you have a right? You know, a very much Hattori, I think that was her name, from No Longer Human, or a very like possessive, like our girl Ume from Kimi no Todoke, where she's like, who are you? Okay, it's obvious that I'm perfect for Kazahaya-kun. You know, it's that idea of this girl having possession of someone that they've never once been like, hey, let's date. Like, bruh, buck up or shut up. And I'm a little concerned that she's trying, but he's clearly rejected her. So she's got this possession over him that shouldn't be present. But he's also showing some possessive signs. Like, he just straight up walks up to her, and like her old childhood friend is like, what are you doing? Like, she doesn't like when people walk up on her like that. And then he covers her eyes and he's like, she said it's fine when it's me. And then turns her around and they walk away. Like, oof. You were just setting your territory there. We see that. I did not miss it for the world. Oof. And I know the friend was like, what the fuck? He was so mad. He was steamed. And I'm like, I want to know if there's going to be a relationship that blooms there. Maybe he likes her and he just never wanted to say it, because he walks away calling her an idiot in sign language. And she's like, what? Who's he calling an idiot? Why? What's going on? And it's like, maybe he sees something with their relationship that's the same thing that we're concerned about him just using her, or maybe he just thinks she's an idiot for falling for him when he's there the whole time. Like, I don't know if that's the story that's going to happen with him, and I'm really excited to see what goes on, because every time they get together now, he seems to just yell at her in sign language, and she's just like, get away, like, leave me alone, what are you doing? And I feel like that's just the vibe that's going to be happening. But yes, I highly recommend this story. It's really good. I want to try and keep up with my reviews on time for this one, better than I've been doing with my other ones, since I've got a little wee bit behind. But yeah. Alright, I hope you enjoyed it. If you've read it, let me know down below. If you haven't, what does it sound like to you? Does it sound good? Do you want to try reading it? Am I persuading you? And I would love to hear your thoughts down below. If you would like to purchase this, I'll put a link down below. Please feel free to follow it and get your own copy. Tell me your opinions if you read it, and if you have read it and you don't like it, tell me why. What did you not like? what you think could be improved, and just give me a shout. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you here next time on SewStitchHex. Have a wicked evening. Bye.